You're listening to the Wise Women Podcast, Episode 16. I'm your host, Alicia Wilfert, founder of Yoke and Abundance, a creative leadership coaching business. This podcast is designed to inspire by introducing you to creative women living abundantly. I hope you'll savor Dawn's words of wisdom as much as I have. Hello, Yoke and Abundance friends. Are you signed up for the Choosing Joy mini retreat with me? We all know you can't pour from an empty cup, and this half-day retreat is designed to help you refill. Imagine a day with seated yoga, meditation, time for reflection, journaling, art journaling, a healthy lunch you don't have to prepare, a like-minded community, and of course, you'll get my signature can't be missed goodie bag. This is a way for you to pause and take time for self-care. Self-care is not selfish. In fact, self-care is health-care, work care, and community care. Refill and flourish in this mini retreat, Choosing Joy with me on December 8th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Space is limited, it will sell out, so head over and reserve your seat today at yokeandabundance.com/retreats/. Now, on to today's guest, Dawn Cheney. Dawn Cheney is the owner of Cheney Properties, and that name might sound familiar because Dawn was generous enough to sponsor 4 of our early episodes. I think that's a testament to her belief: if you have, give. Dawn is a powerhouse businesswoman in Greensboro who has created an empire against many odds. Her confidence is contagious, and she has many pearls of wisdom to share with us today. I hope you'll love this interview as much as I did. But first, a word from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Triad Local First, a nonprofit membership organization based in Greensboro, North Carolina, with members throughout the Triad. Triad Local First members include independent, locally owned retail shops, real estate agents, insurance brokers, marketing and advertising firms, accountants, dentists, restaurants, farmers, breweries, and more. TFL's mission is a commitment to building a strong local economy and a vibrant, unique community. The Buy Local season begins November 15th with holiday strolls happening November 17th and 24th and December 1st and 8th. For more information on how to support local independent businesses this holiday season and throughout the year, visit www.triadlocalfirst.com/buy-local-season. Dawn Cheney, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
You are welcome. I am happy to be here.
Dawn, I ask everyone to start how old they are. Would you mind sharing your age?
No, I don't mind at all. And I'll tell you what I tell people whenever they ask me that. I'm 25 in my head, don't tackle it.
I love that.
But chronologically, I'm one age. Biologically, I'm 77.
I love your answer, though, that you're 25 in your head. Because it really only matters how you feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, in order to keep that brain going, which keeps you young, and of course you keep your body young by working out and doing other things, but that brain has to constantly be working.
Yes.
And many people, when they get a certain age, quote unquote, literally retire.
Right.
And when they retire, they shut down, and it's shut down intellectually as well as physically.
Yes.
So my goal is to stay 25.
I love it. I think that's a great goal. Well, Dawn, you've had such an interesting life. You were a teacher.
Yes.
And that led you to buying some property eventually.
Yes.
And now you have the Cheney Property Empire here
Thank you.
in Greensboro. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are now?
Did you want me to speak when I went to college?
I would love that. I would
Yes.
love your story around that.
I was very fortunate. I'm the youngest of a family of 4. And my mother was 40 when I was born. My older sisters were long gone. So I grew up basically an only child. But a woman 40 is different raising a child than someone who is 25.
Right.
So I grew up being my mother's helper. And she would tell everybody, well, Dawn helps me do this, this, and this, because when I was 5, she went to work at Public Works. And back then, women didn't work at Public Works. So the ladies next door and down the street would come by and say, Mrs. Cheney, I don't know how you get all this work done. And she would say, I have Dawn. Dawn's my helper. So no matter what I did, she taught me. But she taught me what to do, how to do it, and how not to do it.
Right.
So I had to make the garden work and pick all the vegetables, bring them in, get them ready for canning. So when she came home from work, everything was ready to be started to can.
Yeah. And she raised you to believe that you could do anything.
Yes. And she would tell me. She'd tell the neighbors, I have Dawn. If you need something done, let me know. I'll send Dawn over. So away I would go to help Mrs. So-and-so with her plants or with her house, whatever she needed. So after a while, I thought I could do anything.
I love that.
Didn't make any difference. Mom told me I could do anything, so why couldn't I?
Of course.
So then I went to school, and of course I thought I could do anything in school. And so finally my mother had to say to me, Dawn, you have to be quiet in school. You can't tell everybody what you know. Because I would tell them how to do this and how to do that and why they needed to know this and why they needed to know that.
Would you even tell the teachers what they needed to know?
Yes,
Of course.
Occasionally I would say, well, according to what my mother would say, that's not right. This is what we need. And then, of course, the teacher would say to my mother. So Dawn had to be restricted on what she could say in the classroom.
Right.
But on the playing field and wherever I was, I sort of took up that same model.
Yeah. And your mom really instilled in you some really strong money mindsets
Yes.
that have served you really well. Can you
Sure.
share a few of those things?
Oh, my mother was wonderful because, again, they were products of the Depression.
Right.
So money was very important and you had to save. So I can remember when I had to pick berries and then I would sell the berries, and my mother would say to me, now, on your bike when you go to town tonight, you have a quarter. You have to only spend 10 cents. You have to bring back in your pocket more than you went with.
Wow.
After you have your ice cream, I had a nickel cone of ice cream and a nickel soda. So I thought I was doing very well, but I always had money in my pocket. And do you know what? To this day, I believe that.
Yes. Because you always make it a point to spend less than you're saving.
Right. But you have to know how to make money.
Right. What would you tell women now on how to make money?
I think you have to be creative, but you have to be intellectual. The creative side is knowing your business and knowing how you can expand it, how you can develop it, how you can be creative with it. And once you know all those skill sets, then you say, how do I make this economically?
Yes.
How do I take this product or service, whatever my business is, and how do I make that now profitable?
Right.
And the profit is not just to cover expenses. The profit is to make a certain percentage that's for you.
Right.
And it's yours because you developed it.
Exactly.
And if I told you the profit that I think you should have, most people wouldn't believe it. But I believe that you have to have a very high level of profit.
A high profit margin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in most businesses, you can do it if you understand the total dynamics of your business.
Right.
Not only that it's a beautiful product or it's a wonderful service, but how do I get new clients? How do I keep clients? How do I service clients? And what's my return on my service?
Right. I think that's beautiful. So you went to college, and what did you study in college?
My first was in health and human performance, And then I undergraduate, and then I got my master's, and I finally got my PhD in exercise physiology.
Wow.
But the goal there was, again, my mother taught me well. I went when I was right out of high school, and I finished my undergraduate in 4 years, and then I immediately got a job. But I was smart to know. I was smart enough to know that I couldn't keep that job because my first job was in a college, and I only had an undergraduate degree. But I took the job because the teacher got ill, and so they asked me if they would come, and it was across country. So I went all the way across country to this job.
Wow.
But it was wonderful. But I looked around and I saw everybody with doctorates and PhDs and that, and they were the ones who were making all the decisions, and here I was just doing all the legwork. And so I said, after my 1 year, I'm going back to college. So I went and completed my master's, took a job at the State University of New York in Geneseo, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience for me. I loved teaching, but I knew who was making all the decisions. Who was the one who made the most money? The people who had their doctorate. So I said, I saved my money so I could get my doctorate and go back for 2 full years. And I didn't have to work. And I was smart. I went to this university, Texas Women's University, and that's when I bought my first home. I was unemployed and going to be unemployed. And when I went to interview with the realtor to find out if she could show me a home, she said to me, "Where are you employed?" Because I had just arrived. And she said, "We have to know where you're employed." I said, "I'm unemployed." And she said, "We can't sell you a house unless you're employed." Now, I had saved my money, so I knew what I had. And so I said, "Well, I'm sorry, but if you won't, your competitor will, because I'm going to buy one." So she took me and I bought one.
Wow.
First house.
And what year was that?
That was in 1968.
And where did you buy that house?
In Texas.
In Texas. Because at the time in North Carolina, women still couldn't own property alone.
That's right.
Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. But I bought it. I kept it for 2 years and I sold it. And at my graduation, one of the professors said, "This is the first doctoral student who came and made money while she went to school without working."
Wow. Were there many other women in the doctoral program that you were in?
Yes. There were only 7 in my graduating class, in my department.
7 people.
7 women.
7 women. Out of how many?
They were Texas Women's University, were all women.
All women.
That's what, I mean, they were ranked like in physiology,
Yep.
Exercise physiology, they were ranked like number 1 or 2 in the United States at the time.
What was it about exercise science that you were excited about?
I wanted to know how my body worked. I loved the studies that I would be reading about, and I was teaching, and it was no longer just sports to me. It was all about how the body functioned, and I wanted to teach that. So that's what I did. I ended up going and finished my doctorate. I went to the University of Delaware and taught. And I had a great opportunity to come to Greensboro, North Carolina, to Bennett College. I had a grant, and I was able to bring that, and I was able to teach in health and human performance, and I taught there for 10 years.
That's incredible.
It was wonderful.
So why did you decide to take a step away from that?
I knew that somewhere told me I was always wanted to be my own creative person and make my own decisions. Nothing wrong with teaching, because I loved it. And I was chair of the department, so I made a lot of decisions. But I was still not totally the empire that I wanted to be.
Right. You had a vision, even
Yes.
back then.
Yes. So I bought my first 1 or 2 properties, and I saw what could happen. And so I went to the president after 10 years and said I'd like to hand in my resignation, and he asked me if I would take a year's leave of absence just to think about it and then come back. And I said I would try that. was certainly something that I would honor. And I did, but I knew. And soon after that, I went and told him and had a meeting with him and told him that I wouldn't be coming back so that he could find a replacement.
Right.
And that's how I started.
Oh my goodness, I love it. And so now you started in residential.
Yes.
And then you went to commercial. And I know from conversations that you and I have had in the past that you've come up against some challenges specifically because you were a female.
Right.
Would you mind talking about some of those challenges that you faced and
Sure.
how you dealt with them?
Sure. They were wonderful challenges.
Yeah.
And you know, when I teach a class sometime in entrepreneurism, I tell people that the biggest barrier you'll ever face will be your greatest opportunity for success. And I believe that.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you one that I faced. I was buying buildings, and naturally I didn't have cash, but I had little to put down. And the bank had announced that they were looking at offers for investment property. So I went to the president of the bank and I met with him, and he just was my white-haired three-piece suit. That's what my description was. Very nice to me, very friendly, but told me that he didn't know whether we could do that or not, was asked to bring my financial statement. And I did. I set up an appointment with the board. I had to go in front of the board then. And they were all men, white-haired, three-piece suit. Very nice to me. And so I sat at the end of the table because, remember, I'm a teacher. And I realized that when they asked me to come in and sit down, they were sitting all around the oblong table. I sat at the end.
Because that's really the head.
And
for those of you that cannot see Dawn, she just winked at me.
so I sat there and I explained what I wanted to do and all about it and what kind of profit I thought I could make and what I had to put into it and etc. And they went around the table and told me, Miss Cheney, I don't know why you think you can do this. Men can't do this. What makes you think you can? And they repeated it as they went around the table. And I thanked them. And then they said, but if you're willing to guarantee us that you will never be late in your payment, you will always keep the building in top-notch shape, and we're going to be checking it, and if it doesn't look like it is, we're going to call the loan. We're going to put that documentation. I said I understood it. I understood why they would want that, and so I went around the table and I thanked each one of them. Then I pushed my chair back and I stood up and I said, thank you very much. The day will come when you will come to me. I won't be coming to you. That day has come. They come now and ask me if I can help them find people who are interested in getting loans.
Wow.
So all I can say is you have to feel very confident, but you have to work at making it happen. It won't happen by accident. I had to learn very quickly what type of tenant I needed, what type of background check I needed, what kind of services that I would provide for all my tenants.
Yes.
I had to know what was the best type of way in which I would market and analyze my tenants. We had to have 24-hour answering service. I realized that that's the service that my clients needed.
Right.
So I had to provide it.
You gave it to them.
Mm-hmm.
You knew what was needed and you made it happen. Dawn, thank you so much for that background on how you've gotten to where you are. I'm curious right now, what's a project that you're working on that you're really excited about?
Well, I just finished a project downtown. I'm very much interested in our downtown development because I believe the core of our city is downtown.
Yes, I do too.
And we can't allow it to get in any disrepair and or malfunctioning in any way. It is the largest tax base in our city, our central business district. They pay the highest taxes. They provide the tax base so that in our suburban residential area that we can keep the taxes at a constant level.
Right.
If our downtown falters and goes down in value, Taxes will be raised in our residential areas to cover that. So my goal is to try and make sure that we keep our central business district really accelerating in value. And I work on that almost daily.
I love it. And what was a project that you finished recently?
I just finished one that I bought. It's an office building, and I have it for lease on Eugene Street. I bought it about a month ago, and we went in and redid the inside. I have a whole variety of subcontractors, and it's finished now, and we're trying to lease it.
That's incredible. And some of my favorite buildings and businesses downtown are yours.
Thank you. Thank you. We love it because we were able to buy those buildings, and they were in very, very poor condition. Renovate them. We have a restaurant on the first floor, in fact, 2 different restaurants on 2 different buildings, and then above are apartments.
Yeah. Like 1618, that's one of yours. I love it.
1618 and Jerusalem Market. And they're very excellent. They do a great service. They have a tremendous product, and people love coming.
Yes.
And that's what we want.
Right. It helps make our downtown thrive.
Right.
And to me, it shows that that's a legacy that you are providing.
Well, I think it's much greater than that,
tell me.
because that's just a building that is leased and giving a good return. But I look at the big picture now. And one of the things that I'm focused on is a new law change.
What's
and I've
that?
been working with it, and it's passed the legislature. And so we hope to have that so that any boarded up building will have a certain period of time of which it must be corrected and or sold. Or the legal department will execute their legal terms. And that to me is, we can't afford to have any building that is not occupied, giving a great return for all of our citizens.
Right. Being a steward for the city.
Yes.
Yes. I love it. Thank
And
you.
that's what I'm meeting tomorrow afternoon with the legal department to see that we can't get this incorporated very quickly.
Thank you. So this question, I know that you are always working on growing. And I think that's part of your mindset of that you're 25, right? So we grow by doing things that scare us. And I'm wondering if you've done anything recently that scared you and taken courage, but you're glad you did.
In my business, something in my business.
Or in life.
Or in life.
It can be either one.
Well, I'll tell you something that I did just recently. It didn't scare me. It was such a challenge. I looked forward to it. Would that be something?
That would be great.
For the last 2 years, I've been in a research study at Wake Forest. And it's NIH, National Institute of Health, and it's how one of them is housed at Wake Forest. And it's a wonderful research center over there. I would encourage people to see if they couldn't enter it. But anyhow, I finished it, and it was so wonderful. I probably had 50 different tests, and it was such a challenging because I wanted them to be able to tell me about me that I wouldn't know in any other way. These were all physiological tests and mental tests. And how would I know all that data if I didn't have someone outside in the research world testing it?
Yes.
But it was very exciting. I've signed up for another study, and so it was challenging, but it could be a little scary if you didn't realize that you may come back with something you didn't know.
Right.
And but I was very fortunate, and I really, really enjoyed it because it was worth the journey.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I've always really admired about you is how health focused you are and how much you believe in exercise and eating right. And I know you still go to the gym and you work out and you take care of yourself. For someone that is not currently in the habit, What's something that you would tell them that could help propel them into that habit?
Good. That's a good question because I answer it every day with someone who asks me that.
Really?
Yes. And my first question is, who's number one in your life? And if they say to me, well, it could be my child or that, and I said, I understand that. I understand they're very significant to you. But if you're not number one and you don't take care of number one, you won't be here to take care of that wonderful little child. Yes. Or grandmother or mother. So you have to be number one. You can't trade yourself in. You can't get a new body. You got it. So you have to make sure that you keep it to the maximum level you can.
Who instilled that in you? Where did that come from for you?
I guess probably when I was very early in life and I was in sports, and I always tried to be close to the top in the sports. Yes. And I still am today. I still tried that. And I realized that I had to take care of me, because it was important that I had to take care of my health, the way I ate, the way I slept, all that, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to compete.
Right.
And I loved it as early as elementary school when I was competing, and then through high school and then on to college. And I love it today. I played yesterday racquetball. I play 3 days a week.
How long have you been playing racquetball?
Since I first came to Greensboro, because that's when I took it up, because I had another sport when I was in New York. But I loved playing, but I do it for the exercise.
Right.
Right now, it's not a matter of whether I won or lost. It's a matter of I get a great workout. I wear my Fitbit watch. I know how my heart rate is. I know all the parameters of my body when I'm working out. So I realize my heart's getting a good workout. I know that my brain is getting a good workout. Because if the blood doesn't flow to your brain, how does your brain get nourished?
Right. And they say right now, I've heard a lot of doctors talking about brain health, mm-hmm. and how important vigorous exercise is, the kind where it's hard to talk while you're exercising.
That's correct.
In keeping your brain healthy and, mm-hmm. and fighting off dementia and Alzheimer's and yes. any other brain diseases.
Yes. And I tell the people that I play racquetball with when we come at the end of a match, and I say, how you know whether you're getting a good workout, because they all don't have a heart monitor like I do. And I said, is your hair soaking wet? Is your hair perspiring to the point where it's dripping water? If it is, that brain got a wonderful dessert today yes. called oxygen and blood supply.
Yes.
And that's what you want. Because if you didn't, the only way that system's being fed is through your blood supply.
Right.
And once you put that brain through all that blood working up around the muscle tissue of the brain, then guess what? It's had a wonderful dessert.
I love it. I love it. Dawn, there's something else that you do. I know that you think a lot about the future, mm-hmm. and you think a lot about the future through children.
Yes.
And I believe, if I'm right, you work with a group of kids right now.
I have some little ones that their parents bring into my office, so I can try to tell them that they're number one.
And how do you do that?
One of the things I talk to them about when they're young, I tell them, you know who number one is? And they don't know, but I tell them. And I point to myself and I tell them, you point to yourself. So every time you come in here, you're going to be telling me, how's number one doing? So when they walk in my office now, they tell me, they don't say a word, they just point to their chest, number one. Because once we teach that early, that they can be whatever they want to be, they got to study hard, they got to work hard, they got to understand what they're being taught. All those things go together so that they can achieve. and we want them to achieve.
Right.
And we want them to analyze what they're thinking. That's probably one of the greatest things that I find with the little ones. Their ability is to respond to what they've been told. But then when I try to analyze that with them and ask them to analyze it, well, what if it's this? And what if it's that? Then try to bring those two things together. It brings a whole lot of thought process early.
Yes.
And that's what I want the young people to be thinking early. What if it's this and I want that? How do I make it so it's what I want?
Right.
And that's one of the keys in business.
Yes. Thank you. Dawn, I see you as very successful, very powerful, and very wise. And I always love it when you and I have conversations. I always feel like I learn something every time we talk. And you're someone that I look up to as a woman and as a businesswoman and as a community member. And I'm wondering, as you were coming up the ranks, who were the models that you looked to? Where did you glean inspiration?
Okay, I have two. The first one was my mother, which we talked about earlier.
Yes.
In fact, when I got my doctorate, she came up on stage with me, and I felt like she needed to get it. She needed to get the robe that we put on.
Wow.
But she didn't, I did, and she honored me in every way she could. The second person was the dean of the college where I got my doctorate. And I'll tell you what she told us one day, and I'll never forget it. And it was probably one of the inspirations that kept me really focused. She said, all of you will be getting your PhD in a matter of weeks. And once you get that, you don't have to announce it to the world. All you have to do is remember that once you have it, you don't have to tell anybody you have it, because if you're good at what you do, they'll all know it. And I never forgot it, because I used to see people putting their doctorate in front of their name every time, and I used to say, the dean would never approve that, because she told us all that if we were successful, everybody would know it. And that's true.
That's true.
When I was in higher education teaching, everybody knew it. Everybody knew who had their doctorates. We didn't have to go around with titles. And so I tell people, my young people in that, you won't have to tell people what you're doing or what level of success you have.
Right.
When you're successful, they will know it.
They'll know it. Thank you so much for sharing that. If you could go back and tell your high school self or any level of college graduating self something, what would you tell yourself?
That would be different change, or just to repeat what I've done?
Any advice that you could give yourself, one piece of advice.
One piece of advice in high school was, you made the right choice. You went to an all-female college, because that taught me right there. It was all-female college, private girls' school, and it taught me right there that women could control the world. Because every day they talked to us about women being successful, women who could make anything happen. And I can tell you that I came from a working class family. But in my classes were people, I could give you their last name and you'd know every one of them. Because their families own companies worldwide. I'll never forget, in my undergraduate, many of my classmates had traveled the world, and I hadn't been out of Pennsylvania where I lived. But they told me about traveling the world. And I thought, someday, Dawn, you can travel the world.
Yes.
But that's the inspiration you can get whenever you make the decision that you have to be in a group that you can gain knowledge from.
Right.
And that's what I tell the entrepreneurial women today. When you bring groups together, that are all sharing the same goals, that all have the tremendous level of aspiration, then you give each other that goal of achievement.
Yes, yes.
And that's what I learned in my undergraduate.
Thank you. So I know that you have done yoga because you came to one of my classes when I rented space from you and opened Greensboro Downtown Yoga. But I'm curious, what's your favorite exercise?
My favorite exercise is probably, not counting sports, like when I'm playing, my favorite exercise is probably weight training. Because see, I believe that the only way that I educate my muscles is by increasing the volume upon which they have to respond to. So if I'm just sitting in a chair, or if I'm just doing some exercise with my playing a sport, I'm getting certain muscle tissue, but I'm not getting all. So then I have to go to the gym and I work out for specific muscle tissue.
You know, the way you said that, it's also a metaphor for life, right?
Yes. Yes.
You have to increase the volume.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
To build, to grow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You got to increase it. And it has to be regular. It can't be sporadic. And I tell people that in business. It's a totality.
Yes.
You've got to keep it all working together. You can't just isolate in one area.
Right. And Dawn, the last question that I have for you is, how do you live a life of abundance?
Sharing. That's how you live a life of abundance.
Yes.
I believe that we were put here for a reason. And from the day you're born till the day you leave, it's all about giving back.
Yes.
Because if you don't give back, you really haven't had a good journey. Because the journey didn't accelerate the opportunities for you to share and give to someone so they can have a better journey. And so I really believe that once we take the value of giving our knowledge, our inspiration, our product, or our service, that's what you have to do. You have to share it. And I'm going to give you an example. We unfortunately had a tornado hit Greensboro. So I wondered what I could do because I didn't know. So I called our city council that one of their districts was hit very badly. And I said, if you have a family or if you have a mom and dad with a child or children that are homeless because of the tornado, I will provide housing for them.
Wow.
Total housing, the utilities and everything. But I don't want a single mom, I don't want just an add-on. Because if it were me, I could probably manage. But if I had some children, I probably couldn't. So she called me about an hour later and she said, I have them, Dawn. I have a man and woman and a 6-month-old. They lost everything. There was no diapers, there's no milk, there's nothing. So I immediately got the family. We put them in an apartment. I got all kinds of materials for them, some clothing, toys, diapers, anything that friends of mine that could give. And we provided that opportunity for them. So guess what? They now both have jobs. I've met once again with the little one and he recognized me. He's 6 months old. And we have got them so that they're going to be moving to Charlotte where her family lives. But those are the kind of things that it didn't take much out of me.
Right, if you have, give.
Yeah, that's right. Because that's what it's all about,
right.
Helping someone else be successful. And I believe that.
Yes.
Now, I also believe that you have to educate people so they in turn can be successful.
Right.
I'm such a believer in the educational package.
Dawn, thank you so much.
Thank you. It was been a joy.
I hope you were inspired by Dawn's words of wisdom. If you've enjoyed this podcast, head over to iTunes, give us a review, and then remember, sharing is caring. So please share this podcast with a friend that could use a dose of inspiration and wisdom. When you share this podcast, it makes it possible for us to keep bringing wise words your way. Check out our website, yokeandabundance.com, for more words of wisdom, creativity tips, and information about my group and individual coaching programs. A huge thank you to our sponsor, Triad Local First, and my wonderful editor and producer, Ira Sterling at Julia Sound Recordings. Remember, every one of us has wisdom within. Keep sharing your words of wisdom because you never know who you'll inspire.